Our journey starts at Reykjavik, Europe's northernmost capital. From there, we travel to the Reykjanes Peninsula, one of the most active volcanic regions in the world. After paying a visit to Iceland's top tourist attraction, the Blue Lagoon thermal baths, we explore the villages and lava fields of the southwest coast. We then head inland to the world's second largest geothermal power plant at Hengid. We return to the southern coast at Reykjavik, one of a number of villages situated on the world's largest post-Ice Age lava field. Out to sea, we explore the Westman Islands, also known as the Pompeii of the North. Finally, we visit Surtsey, one of the world's most important scientific discoveries. Iceland's rich history dates back to the 9th century and the age of the Vikings. It's believed today's Reykjavik was the site of their first permanent settlement. Europe's northernmost capital enjoys one of the highest living standards in the world. With its abundance of renewable energy, Reykjavik is also considered to be the world's greenest city, a great source of local pride. While Iceland remains Europe's most sparsely populated country, roughly 2/3 of its 320,000 inhabitants live in or around the capital. With its commercial shipping facilities, international airport, and striking architecture, Reykjavik has embraced its status as a thriving modern city. One distinctive building is known as the Pearl, a storage facility for geothermally heated water. The location here, a mere 2 degrees south of the Arctic Circle, means short 4-hour days in winter. But in the summer, Reykjavik becomes the land of the midnight sun, with nearly 24 hours of daylight. Swimming is a great way to pass Iceland's long summer days. The use of geothermal pools means year-round bathing. A fine example of the country's unique architectural style is Hallgrímskirkja Cathedral, one of Reykjavik's most recognizable landmarks. At nearly 75 meters, the majestic tower's design was inspired by the shapes and patterns found in lava formations. Of course, no visit to Iceland's capital would be complete without exploring the colourful housing of the city's neighbourhoods. Painting buildings this way goes back to the early 1900s, when corrugated iron was used as a cheap and abundant building material. The problem was that it quickly rusted. So, in resourceful Icelandic fashion, the homeowners looked no further than the leftover paints from boatyards to rust-proof their houses. It also made the city blaze with colour. Though today building materials are mixed, it's a habit that's clearly stuck. Another of Iceland's traditions holds an even greater significance than housing or architecture. Built in 1992, Reykjavik City Hall may be a sleek, bold structure built for a modern government, but democracy in Iceland has roots dating back more than 1,000 years. The country's first parliamentary government was established around the year 930 and endured for 3 centuries. One of the city's most beloved works of public art, the Sun Voyager, pays homage to Iceland's Viking past. The sculpture is an ode to the sun, said to represent a dream ship, a fitting symbol of the country's seafaring history. Although Reykjavik has embraced its modern status, the city remains deeply connected to its past. Away from the noisy hustle and bustle is Arbeiðarsafn, a museum that celebrates the country's building traditions. Established in 1957, it set out to preserve Iceland's culture and heritage for future generations. Most of the houses were taken from Reykjavik's oldest neighbourhoods and from distant fishing hamlets, then carefully reconstructed. On the city's northern edge, we find another historic home, one which altered the course of modern history. Hervey House, built in 1909, became the site of one of the most notable meetings of the modern age. On the 11th of October 1986, Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev met here for 2 days to discuss the possible decommissioning of nuclear weapons. As for Iceland's own history, more than 100 lighthouses stand as symbols of the nation's deep connection to the sea. Located in the Seltjarnarnes Peninsula Nature Reserve on Reykjavik's northwest tip is Grota Lighthouse. The tower has stood watch over the entrance to the harbour since it was originally built in 1894. Although the building itself is closed to the public, this spot is considered to be one of the best places in the city to watch the northern lights. As we travel along the southwest coast, these clouds are a clue as to how Reykjavik, which means Smoky Bay, was originally given its name. The early settlers marvelled at the thick clouds of steam that once shrouded this volcanic landscape. The lava and ash have also given Iceland its rich mineral resources. One of the country's key industries is aluminium smelting. With an annual capacity of more than 185,000 tonnes, this Rio Tinto plant is an important part of the national economy. Today, aluminium accounts for around 20% of Iceland's total exports. As we continue west, winding roads snake their way across the vast landscape. These roads often serve as the only connection between larger towns and the most remote pockets of Iceland's sparse population. Like the small fishing hamlet of Vogar, which sprang up in the early 20th century. It gained importance when larger harbours became necessary to accommodate the increasing size of fishing vessels. We cross the harbour and head towards Reykjanes Peninsula, a birding and nature reserve. The waters here are also an important seasonal habitat for several species of whales and dolphins. Sheltered by the harbour is the municipality of Reykjanesbær. Though fishing has always been vital for the communities here, it gained military importance after the Second World War, when a key US naval base was established on this site. Decommissioned in 2006, it's since been transformed into a vocational college which includes a renowned aviation program. Future pilots also train here, at nearby Keflavik Airport. Originally built for the military in 1943, civilian traffic gradually took over. It now services more than 2 million passengers each year. Most visitors flock to one of Iceland's newest additions, the Blue Lagoon thermal baths. These pools are the country's leading tourist attraction. It all began when a nearby geothermal power plant opened in 1976. A stream of excess water from the facility saturated the porous lava field, creating the pools we see today. A blend of silica and blue-green algae creates the distinctive milky colour. Many visitors believe the water helps with skin complaints. The Blue Lagoon may be fairly new, but Icelanders have been utilising hot water pools for centuries. The first man-made geothermal facility in Iceland dates back to the early 13th century, but the tradition of bathing in the hot springs has been an important part of the national culture since the first settlement in the 9th century. Today, the Blue Lagoon welcomes more than 400,000 visitors each year from every corner of the globe. It may not be a naturally occurring phenomenon, but its impressive size and the water's unique characteristics ensure it's place as one of the man-made wonders of the world. These pools are also another example of Iceland's penchant for finding innovative ways to utilize available resources. The abundance of geothermal power generated from this peninsula makes it the lifeblood of Iceland. It is, after all, situated on a visible rift zone with 5 distinct volcanic regions. Since most of the world's rift zones are underwater, the peninsula offers a rare glimpse of the North American and Eurasian plates as they pull away from each other, albeit very, very slowly. With each period of volcanic activity, Iceland continues to grow and gain landmass, making the Reykjanes Peninsula a geologist's dream. These mountains were formed during the last ice age. When a snow-capped volcano erupted, torrents of lava ripped channels through the glacier, forming the peaks and ridges we see today. A 450-year period between the 9th and 14th centuries was particularly active. 16 lava fields were created by at least 4 separate eruptions, each leaving its own distinctive pattern of lava formation. The cliffs along the southwestern coast offer a spectacular glimpse of Iceland's fascinating geological history. Even in the remotest regions, small farms dot the rugged terrain. Traditional shore farming and fishing techniques in these areas remained virtually unchanged until the turn of the 20th century. The unsurfaced roads connecting these remote locations are simply carved directly into the lava. Another great example of Iceland's resourcefulness. More than half the country's 13,000 kilometers of roads are made this way. But it does leave the surface a little dusty. We continue across the vast expanse of wilderness for a first-hand encounter with the country's most abundant natural resource. Beyond these rocky crags and along this winding road lies Headless Heathy Geothermal Power Station, the second largest of its kind in the world. The plant opened in 2006 and has since undergone several expansions. Today, Iceland is one of the world's foremost leaders in geothermal technology. Nearly all the nation's electricity is produced using renewable resources, such as geothermal and hydroelectric power. An estimated 90% of the population uses green energy. Iceland may be young from a geological perspective, but its first inhabitants arrived here long before Europeans settled in the Americas. Situated on the banks of the Ölfusá River is Selfoss, Iceland's first inland town. There's been a settlement here for over 1,000 years. It gained important significance after the first bridge spanning the Ölfusá River was built here in 1891. Until that time, traffic had to be ferried across the rough, dangerous waters of the fast-flowing river. We return to the coast at Eyrarbakki, once Iceland's largest trade port and cultural hub. Local lore tells of a sailor from this town named Leif Erikson, who was compelled by the rumor of a strange new land beyond the Atlantic Ocean, told to him by a seafarer who'd been blown off course. The truth may never be known, but many historians now credit Leif Erikson as the first European to set foot on North American soil 500 years before Columbus. As we follow the coastline, we come to the nearby fishing village of Surtsey. In addition to its small human population, nearly 70 species of birds have been recorded. Amid 5 square kilometres of flood meadows and ponds, these wetlands have been designated the Flowy Bird Nature Reserve. The entire surrounding area is part of the massive Thjörsa lava plain. Thjörsa is the largest post-Ice Age lava flow on Earth. For local sailors, steering clear of Iceland's most treacherous stretches of shoreline has been a challenge for centuries. Keeping careful watch over the rocky shore is Canara Rós Lighthouse. Since its construction in 1938, it has played a critical role for vessels sailing in the region. With barely fertile lava plains as far as the eye can see, it's understandable why most early inhabitants chose to be near the coast. Further inland, settlements grew beside rivers. This sparsely scattered village of Þykkvibær has sustained itself with fish from the Hulsa River since the arrival of its first inhabitants in the 9th century. Today, anglers depend on a carefully planned program to replenish the salmon and trout stock. An increasing number of tourists visit Þykkvibær to enjoy one of the country's premier fishing experiences. Protecting the country's natural resources is an important part of Icelandic culture. The use of fertilizers and pesticides are strictly limited. Pollution from nitrogen and phosphorus are virtually non-existent in Iceland's rivers and lakes. Life is usually peaceful for those living in the shadow of Katla, even though it's one of Iceland's most dangerous volcanoes. On average, there's an eruption every 60 years, and the next is long overdue. But molten lava and ash aren't the only causes for concern. Melt from the glacier has led to catastrophic flooding in the past. Just off the southern coast, we find another of Iceland's most active volcanic locations, the Westman Islands. The name refers to the Irish people who fled here after escaping slavery on Iceland's mainland. The Irish were called Westmen because Ireland was the westernmost country known to Nordic people at the time. We spot a whaling ship heading out in hope of a catch. It's one of only 3 countries where commercial whaling is still permitted, although not without criticism from conservationists. Formed by underwater volcanic activity, the Westmans are made up of over 50 islands, pillars and rocks, all teeming with bird and marine life. The largest and only populated one is Heimaey. Measuring 13.5 square kilometres, both the island and its population continue to grow. But humans aren't the sole inhabitants. The archipelago also hosts the largest puffin colony on Earth. An estimated 30% of the world's puffins can be seen nesting here in the summer months. Although fishing has long been Heimaey Island's most important industry, a growing portion of the local economy now depends on puffin-related tourism. Icelanders have always found creative ways to utilize their natural resources. And the island's small airport is no exception. Lava and ash from the most recent volcanic eruption were used to refurbish and extend the runway. Landing at Westman Islands Airport must be an extraordinary experience for first-time visitors, since on stepping out of the terminal, you're greeted by a dominating volcano only a few hundred meters away. It's one of two on the island that lie side by side and are part of the Westman Islands volcanic belt, a system that covers almost 900 square kilometers. The smaller volcano is Helgafell, or Holy Mountain. This 227-meter cinder cone last erupted 5,000 years ago and is no longer considered to be active. Its neighbour, on the other hand, has not been so quiet. With no sign of seismic activity for the moment, Eldfed, or Fire Mountain, makes a nice afternoon hike. But a massive eruption just a few decades ago resulted in the town's nickname Pompeii of the North. On the 23rd of January 1973, a 1,600-meter crack burst open on Eldfed's east side. Glowing fountains of lava spewed 150 meters into the air for several weeks. The eruption eventually slowed, but lava continued to flow for another 5 months. By June, 417 houses were destroyed, and the town was covered with 200 million cubic meters of ash and volcanic debris. But the damage would have been much greater had it not been for a few brave souls and a clever attempt to stop the advancing wall of lava. Firefighters laid 30 kilometers of pipeline and used 43 pumps to douse the lava with icy seawater from the North Atlantic. It was the first such attempt anywhere in the world, and the monumental effort paid off. They were able to halt the flow and save most of the town. Geologically, the Westmans are quite new, less than 10,000 years old. But Icelanders and scientists from around the world were in for quite a surprise when a totally new island suddenly emerged. Surtsey first appeared one November day in 1963 as a column of thick, black dust rising from the ocean. By the second day, a mound of cooling rock was protruding 10 meters above the waves. The eruption continued for another 4 years. By then the island had spread to nearly 3 square kilometers and reached a height of 170 meters. Surtsey's unexpected appearance offered an invaluable opportunity for scientists. Processes such as soil creation and the development of plant and wildlife species could be directly observed. Aside from members of the island's small research centre, human contact with Surtsey Island is strictly prohibited. Restrictions also limit diving, boating, and even flying nearby. The select few allowed to visit must take careful precautions to avoid accidentally introducing seeds or insects into the island's ecosystem. The United Nations organization, UNESCO, saw Surtsey as a pristine natural laboratory to be treasured and protected, and as such was declared a World Heritage Site in 2008. It's the new addition to the spectacular Westman Islands that continue to tell the story of our forever changing planet. A perfect place to end this journey